Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared war on Hamas after the Palestinian armed group launched its largest attack on Israel in decades on Saturday. Thousands of rockets were fired from Gaza into southern and central Israel as part of Hamas's Al-Aqsa flood operation against Tel Aviv. Israel has responded with airstrikes. The Gaza Health Ministry says at least 232 Palestinians have been killed and 1,700 wounded. Israel's National Rescue Service says at least 250 Israelis have been killed and over 1,100 wounded. Dozens of Israeli civilians and soldiers are believed to have been captured. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed what he called mighty vengeance, saying that he'll muster all military forces to destroy Hamas. Louise Greenwood has more.
It came early on Saturday. Fighters from the militant group Hamas in Gaza crossing the border, separating it from southern Israel. In the biggest attack on the Jewish state in years, armed fighters from the Islamist movement used boats and paragliders to land into Israeli territory. Soon after, footage emerged from the border city of Sderot, showing militants on deserted streets wielding weapons. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says a response operation named Swords of Iron is underway that will begin by rooting out Palestinian forces on the ground.
I have ordered an extensive mobilisation of reserves and that we return fire of a magnitude that the enemy has not known. The enemy will pay an unprecedented price. In the meantime, I call on the citizens of Israel to strictly adhere to the directives of the Army and Home Front Command. We are at war and we will win it.
Claiming to have launched 5,000 rockets on Israel from the enclave, a Hamas military commander said the group was acting to end what it called the last apartheid regime on earth.
We have decided to put an end to this with God's help, and so the enemy understands that the time of wreaking without being held accountable is over. We announced the start of the Al-Aqsa flood operation. We also announced with the help and strength of God that the first strike of the Al-Aqsa flood operation has targeted sites of the enemy, its airports and military fortifications.
In response, Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas says his citizens have a right to defend themselves against what he called occupation forces. The attack has been described as a massive intelligence failure by Israel. It comes exactly 50 years since the start of the Yom Kippur War, when an Arab coalition led by Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack against Israel on the Day of Atonement, considered the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. This new offensive comes just as many Israeli citizens were at home on public holiday observing the same event. In Gaza, families are fleeing. Those that are staying are stocking up on supplies of food ahead of Israeli retaliation strikes.
Of course we're in fear. We're afraid of what they'll do. They might wipe us off the face of the earth. We've fled in fear. I cannot walk. Of course we're afraid. May God protect them and us.
Condemnation of Hamas's actions has been swift, with European leaders denouncing the violence. Egypt has appealed for what it calls the utmost restraint to avoid civilian casualties. But as violence escalates, Israel has confirmed that it has hit a number of targets in the Gaza Strip, with the United Nations warning that civilians on both sides are set to bear the brunt of further attacks in coming hours. Louise Greenwood, CGTN.